Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today I'm going to be doing book math. This is another way to recommend books to you guys. So instead of just saying if you like this, you'll like this, I'm going to do a combination. So some elements from a book plus some other elements from a book combined and you get this book. So I'm going to throw up the books for the combination here, and then the book that is the combination of those will go here. So the first one that I want to talk about is Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman and All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. If you combine elements from them, you get The First Girl Child by Amy Harmon. Now, I recently read this and I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. So let's get into the different elements here. So in Norse Mythology by Gaiman, he is reimagining all of the Norse tales and kind of Viking lore and the different ways that gods created things. And then in All the Ugly Wonderful Things, the elements that I'm taking out of this one is an age gap where a boy or a man is the protector of a younger girl, and over time their relationship changes. And there is also an element about the older boy where people aren't sure if he is all brawn and no brains, and also their story is told over many years, and you see their relationship change from caretaker to something else, something more romantic. Girl child, the first girl child, we are following a world which has been created by a Norse god who has pulled up some of the ocean and made an island, and it is a 6-pointed star where there is a clan on each of the points essentially, and in the middle is the temple and the king's palace. So in this world, a king is picked by the temple keepers, and when that king dies, the next clan in the star point sends up their delegates, and then the keepers choose from amongst them. So in this world there's also a curse where no girl child has been born in a very long time. We are following two main characters. One is Bryn, who is a young boy who is very strong, and he is being raised by his uncle, who is one of the keepers of the temple. And as he grows up, he is made to be the protector of the first girl child born in all of the land in a very long time, named Alba. So this age gap is not as bad as All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. They're only 7 years different, and for the longest time, Bryn is Alba's main protector. So he raises her, he protects her, he sleeps at the foot of her bed to protect her from assassins or from people who are trying to steal her because she's the last female. And there is a lot in this book to love. So if you like Norse mythology and you like kind of the development of the relationship in All of the Ugly and Wonderful Things without such an extreme age gap, then this would be for you. Oh, also something from All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. The main character in All the Ugly and Wonderful Things, the young girl, she is kind of the princess of the drug lord who is essentially kind of the villain, the terrible parent. And in The First Girl Child, the princess, her father, the king, is the worst and very evil, and doesn't even really care for her at all. And so she is the princess of kind of the corrupt royal family. So very similar. So if you put these together and you liked either one, or you like the elements that I spoke about, please do check out The First Girl Child. I really loved it and I can't recommend it highly enough. I gave it 4.5 stars. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So the next one, if you like the elements from The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood and Stolen by Lucy Christopher, then you might like The Natural Way of Things by Charlotte Wood. So let's get into the elements from these which make up this. So let's talk about The Handmaid's Tale first. So I'm sure that many of you know what The Handmaid's Tale is about. It's where we are in an alternate society where women are subjugated very extremely, and they are made to wear hats or huge cones covering their heads, and they are used as breeding vessels in this world. So the elements from this book that I'm taking are the subjugation of women, having to hide their body, and being made to do tasks which they do not want to do. And in Stolen by Lucy Christopher, we are following two people: a man who steals a woman from an airport and brings her to the outback to be his captive. And the elements I'm taking from this are being a captive in the outback and discovering how to survive in such a barren wilderness, and both of these trying to escape the system. So the natural way of things follows a group of women who are kidnapped and brought to the outback in Australia, and they are held against their will inside this compound, which has electric fences running around the outside, and they have their heads shaved, and they are made to wear hoods and dress in a certain way in like burlap sacks, and they have to perform tasks which they don't want to by order of the three caretakers who are demanding these things of them. And in this world, the women are being punished for things that they have done and people they have stood up against in the past. So this book, I think I gave 2 or 3 stars. I wasn't such a huge fan of the plot and the development of the characters, but I think that it really does have elements from both of these in here, and also a ton of people really, really love this book. So maybe you would think differently of it if you read it. It wasn't for me personally, but I did like the elements that I spoke about from these 2 books, which were in this book. So if you liked the elements from these, then maybe check these out. Also, if you are missing the books that I'm saying, I will also leave links. I will also leave their names down below. Okay, so let's get into the third mashup. This book math is Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer, plus The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway gets you Tales from the Inner City by Shaun. Okay, so let's break it down. So Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer is a look at the animal production system in America, and this isn't inherently for vegetarians or vegans at all. This is just breaking down how we process animals in America. So I think he follows cows, chickens, and pigs, and it talks about the way that animal industry impacts the animals and also the environment in America. And The Old Man and the Sea is talking about one man's hunt to catch this one fish that has just been kind of the elusive one of his whole life. And when he finally catches it and brings it back, he learns a very important and heartbreaking lesson about striving to get something that you think is like going to make you more powerful or richer, or kind of the impossible dream where you lose a lot of yourself in chasing it. And in Tales from the Inner City, this is Shaun collection of short stories paired with images about how humans and industrialization and urban spaces have interacted and destroyed a lot of animal life, and our interaction with animals has changed. So one of my favorite story in here is this one, which is on the cover, and it's following young boys who are fishing off of the roofs of their city, and they're trying to catch celestial fish. And they want to catch one fish in particular, this one, which is called the moonfish. They want to sell it because it is worth a lot and they'll get a lot of power and money for their family. And when they finally do catch it, they realize a lot of really harsh lessons about what chasing that means. So if you like very strong messages kind of about how humans interact with animals, environmentalism, urbanization, and also beautiful imagery, then I really think that Shaun Tan's Tales from the Inner City would be for you. Alrighty, and my next book math is if you combine Geek Love by Katherine Dunn with Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, you get The Vorrh by Bryan Catling. So yeah, none of these are really happy and they're very dark. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Geek Love by Katherine Dunn. The elements that I'm talking about in this one are families can hide really dark secrets and kind of the disintegration of humanity is what I would say. And the elements of Heart of Darkness, which I think are very similar, are colonialism, particularly British colonialism, and going into a jungle and finding out that things are much different than you think. And in the Vorrh by Brian Catling, we are following many different main characters, but a lot of it centers around dark family secrets and making creatures which are very outside of what normal society would deem probably okay. And we are also following another main character who is going into the forest, and he has set free an arrow made out of his beloved's bones. And there are dark forces in the forest themselves, and there are fallen celestial beings, and there are like curses and sicknesses which are breaking out in cities. This is a very dark, creepy novel, but at first I didn't think I liked this, and I think I gave it 3 stars, but the longer that I think about it, so many scenes in this book have stuck with me, and it has such great staying power that I do highly recommend it, and I think I would give it 3.5 or 4 stars the longer that I sit on it, because some of these scenes in here are just absolutely haunting. So if you're curious at all what Geek Love plus The Heart of Darkness would look like, this is the book for you. Okay, and the last book mashup that I have for you guys is My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Tallent, paired with The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, gives you The Choke by Sofie, Laguna. So let's break it down. So My Absolute Darling, the elements that I'm taking for this are being raised in a very destructive family where the main character in this book is largely fending for herself against many outside forces. So really horrific family members, school teachers and school children who are just really the worst. She is growing up into herself, and she's learning to fend for herself against those external forces. And just something I'm going to say right quick is that the sexual abuse in this book, which is from the hands of a family member, is not in this book. That is not at all what is going on here. But the kind of growing up experience that the main character Turtle faces throughout this book feels very similar to the growing up experience in this book. And this book also does have sexual assault, but not from the hands of a family member. And then in The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, this is dealing with soldiers from Vietnam, and it's talking about their experiences there and a lot of also the PTSD they are carrying years later. And in The Choke, she is being raised by her grandfather, who suffers from extreme PTSD from his time in the war, and that heavily impacts the way that she has grown up and the way that she doesn't receive a lot of affection. So our main character in this one is a very small girl when we first meet her, and she's being raised by her father, who, like I said, has PTSD, and she kind of idolizes her father, who almost never comes home. He's always on the run from the law, and her mother also abandoned her in childhood, and she is growing up in a very small, poor town in Australia, and she is learning to deal with the ways that people just kind of don't care for her, and she needs to learn to fend for herself. At first, her half-brothers were her friends, and then later, as things happen and people drive wedges between them, she just has really no friends left. The friend she does make ends up leaving her, and it's just, it's so brutal, but it is so good. So I gave this book 4 stars overall, and I really do highly recommend it. So if you're looking for kind of the vibe of My Absolute Darling plus some of the war elements and the PTSD memories and the way that that impacts a family from the things they carried, then The Choke by Sofie Laguna would be one to check out. I really recommend it. Yeah. So I loved making this video. I always love book recommendation videos, and I thought that this would be fun to take elements from 2 books and make it 1 book. So if you like this idea, let me know down below, and I would love to do more like this. I hope that you are having an awesome day and that you enjoyed this, and I will chat to you guys later or in the comments. If you found any new books that you want to read, or you have any thoughts on my pairings, do let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this, hit the thumbs up button or subscribe. That would be amazing, and I will chat to you guys later. Bye!